Hey guys, we're back again with Big Brother. We're now on episode 12 of season 24. Last time we had Monty as HOH, part of the Leftovers Alliance, and he decided to put up Alyssa and Indy on the block with a plan to backdoor Nicole, who's besties with, what's her name? Taylor, right, who's also part of the Leftovers Alliance, and she's nervous about being on the block again, not sure she can trust her alliance or whatever. She's having some sort of situation. So they just have that backdoor plan in case she changed her mind. So that is pretty much it. And now we're going to go into the veto, which is going to determine how it's going to go. So if the veto gets used and the two that's on the block gets taken off, then that backdoor plan can go in place. It's mostly because those two were chosen because they were the only group that has no members of the Leftovers Alliance in it. And just that's pretty much the reason that he chose them, and he has the backdoor plan in case, whoever they're going to take out. If I was them, I would have targeted Daniel over Nicole, but I think just because of the way Nicole did in the last HOH, in the last competition it was HOH, that they are kind of scared about it. But I think Daniel overall is a better player than she is. But that's how they decided to go for it. Because I think because she makes herself a more obvious target because she wears her strength like out like a shield for the world, where Daniel is a little bit more subtle about the things that he's doing. So that's pretty much what I think is going on. All right. So they got these people on the block. Alyssa is, she's, she's acting friendly. She's doing her thing. She's very good socially, and she's working that very well. The guys are trying to make Taylor feel as comfortable as possible in case, for the backdoor plan. So they didn't want her to freak out in case, she go up on the block or anything like that. So that's pretty much the situation that they're in. And then we have another group forming, which is Michael, Taylor, and Brittany, who I already knew were very close. They've decided to start a final three deal between them, which is separate from the Leftovers Alliance. But they're only three, and they don't realize there's also the Pound Alliance that started within the Leftovers. So it's like 7 people, and 4 already had a final 4, and now these 3 are forming a final 3, which is a very obvious thing. I think they can all figure out where they're aligned, but I don't think they know that the guys are that close yet. So you got Michael here, you got Brittany over here, and you got Taylor over here, who just formed this final 3 situation. And I think it's great for Michael because he's going to, if he has those 3, especially if he takes Brittany to the end, he wins. If he takes Taylor to the end, he probably wins too. He's just going to be more favored by the jury than the other 2. Taylor might do better than Brittany, but I think Brittany's social game would be better than Taylor's, and Brittany could possibly win. But yeah. It's a good deal for Brittany because she will probably get chosen either way to get to the final 2. So it's an excellent deal for her. Monty decided to pull what is his name, Daniel, aside, and he was talking to him about his plan to backdoor no, not Nicole. He said Taylor. He said he's trying to backdoor Taylor, which is not true. He's trying to backdoor Nicole, but he knows Nicole is very close with Daniel, and he's trying to convince Daniel that that's what the plan is. All right, so he's talking to him about it, and Daniel is nodding and saying, yeah, but in the back of his head, Daniel's like, no, if he wins veto, he doesn't plan to use it at all because he thinks they're trying to target Nicole. All right, so he's picking up on what's going on, and he's just not trying to have any of that. All right. Then we have right over here, these 3 are talking, So you got Kyle over here, Taylor and Michael, all part of the Leftovers Alliance. And they were talking about the fact that if they can convince Daniel to somehow win the veto and then use the veto to remove Taylor and Indy from the block, and then they backdoor his best friend, which is Nicole. That would be amazing. And that is when, I think, just from that poetic justice, that is when Taylor started to get on board with the whole backdoor plan, which would require her to be on the block. Because, but I figured it was all talk. If, at the moment she hits the block, she would just be a nervous wreck. It just like she doesn't have the mental stability for that kind of thing. Like she barely talked game with anybody. Literally the alliance that she was put into, they literally had to drag her into it out of pity. Like she's terrible at this game. And the only person she actually talked game with before that was Michael. And Michael, she only did that because she was possibly going to get put up, and she wanted Michael to use the veto on her. It just, she's just a whole disappointment, to be honest with you. And then we have Kyle over here, who, for some reason, he's jeopardizing his game for Alyssa because her charms are still working on him. I mean, which is not surprising. He doesn't seem like he has a lot of experience with women. So she's still doing the flirting thing. And yeah, even though he knows she possibly has a guy at home, he's still kind of flirting back and whatever. And she's keeping it going, I think, because the chance that he can possibly use the veto on her, but she doesn't really trust him because of what happened prior when he left her out of the vote, which got Amira taken out of the game. All right, so they have that drama going. All right, and we have Nicole over here, Nicole talking to Daniel, and they're sort of talking about the possibility that she might get backdoored if the veto is used. And yeah, so that's that. Time for veto competition. There's already 5 people in the veto competition, which is the 3 people that are, well, you got Monty who's HOH, and he's attached to Joseph as his bestie. And then also Terrence came in later as the bestie. So that's 3 people. And then we have the 2, which is Alyssa and Indy. So that's 5 people. So they can only choose 2 more people for the veto. So it's just like choosing a bestie. And the choice was, the name that came up was Daniel and Kyle, which right there, Daniel and Kyle is what was chosen. So it's now going to be 7 people competing in the veto. So let us get to what the veto is going to be. Oh, right, this part. So, as we know, Brittany is always a nervous wreck. So she was talking about a plan where everyone else in the Leftovers Alliance is kind of covered in case they go up on the block, because they have people outside of the alliance that could possibly get voted out. That's particularly why Monty and Joseph decided to convince Terrence to join their team. So now that if they get put up on the block, they could vote him out and save themselves. But now we have 2 other people that are in the Leftovers Alliance who are also besties, and could, if they get up on the block, one of them is going to go home, which is Brittany and Michael. So Brittany's plan is she wants the nominations to stay the same so that she can convince Indy to join their team with her and Michael, which would give them safety in the form of they can vote out Indy if they ever get put on the block. All right, so that is their plan. That is her plan right here. All right, so she's kind of workshopping it with these 3. And then I believe later they're going to try to get it past Monty as well. All right. So Daniel and Kyle, who are besties, are sort of playing this game with each other where Daniel doesn't want the veto to be used, but he's not telling Kyle that. Kyle wants the veto to be used, but he's not saying anything to Daniel because he wants Daniel to think it's his own idea to use the veto. So he's not saying anything. So he's kind of, but even though he's not saying anything, Daniel already knows that Kyle would possibly want to use the veto on Alyssa, which means like everyone in the house pretty much know they have a showman. So it's just a ridiculous thing to even try to hide at this point. All right, so let's get to the veto. The veto is a memory competition. All right. I'll skip a lot of the boring bits, but the veto is a memory competition. So even though we have these three, these two are going to be watching a video on the side there that he is not going to see. All right. They're going to watch the video and then they're going to describe every component of the video to him. All right. And the other groups only have two people, so they don't have to worry about this. So in the other group, in Daniel and Kyle, in the Daniel and Kyle group, Daniel is going to be watching the video and describing the events to Kyle. In the Indy and Alyssa group, Alyssa is going to be watching the video and describing the events to Indy. All right. And after they do this part, then the other partner is going to be answering questions about what was seen in the video after it's been described to them by their partner. All right. So, we're going to skip a lot of this nonsense. All right. After they describe the video, then let's get to the questions. All right. I believe the first question, Monty got wrong. I believe in the video, one of the major points was like pink elephants. And even though Terrence and Joseph told him about the pink elephants, he didn't remember it and he got it wrong and he blamed them for him getting it wrong. He's a particular idiot. And but Kyle and Indy both got that question right because it was the easiest question. The elephant was pink. The second question, I think it was about pigs. It was like when the elephants crossed the sun, they turned into flying pigs that were green. But the question was, what did they turn into? Was it pigs or birds or whatever? And I believe Monty got that wrong. No. All right. So this is the answers, and the second answer, which was B, was pigs, and these two answered incorrectly, and they got it wrong, which means I believe Kyle got every question right. No, I think that was the third question, and he got it right because the other two, the question was about the flowers. There was like a bunch of sunflowers that popped up, and there was like 4 of them, and the answer was like, how many sunflowers was there? The first was 3, the second was 4, and the third was 5. And these two, Monty and Indy, didn't know what the answer was because their partners didn't pay attention to that part. I don't think any of the partners paid attention to the sunflowers because it was one of the earliest thing that popped up in the video. So they guessed and they got it wrong. Kyle guessed and he got it right. All right. So I think that's when he took the lead because he and Indy was back to back on questions until that point. So he took the lead. And after that, he just kept getting the questions right. Indy was also getting the questions right, which was surprising. But because she was 1 point behind, she ended up losing. And Kyle won the power of veto, which means Kyle and Daniel now have the power of veto. Here's how the veto works. If one bestie wants to use the power of veto, they both use it. No matter what, if the other person doesn't want to use it, it only takes one person to actually use it. So they both have to either agree to use it or one can decide to use it. So, which makes it more likely to be used, which is a very clever system they have there because a lot of people tend to shy away from using veto. So now they're in a situation where Daniel is nervous about Kyle wanting to use the veto because he doesn't want it to be used because he want to protect his bestie, Nicole. So immediately Kyle tells, I believe Alyssa, because Alyssa was questioning him and she was trying to guilt trip him a little bit into using the veto. And he told her immediately, he's like, yes, no worry, the veto is absolutely going to be used. You're going to be safe. He tells her that, but behind the scenes, Brittany and Michael, and now that she co-opted, what was her name? Taylor, they've pitched the idea to Monty about them keeping the noms the same so that they can get protected by having Indy join them. And he got on board with it, and the rest of the alliance got on board with it. So then when Kyle comes into the DR room, they all put pressure on him to use the veto. And he's just like, I got to think about it, because he has to choose between protecting his alliance or protecting his showmans, which is stupid. Like, showman is not going to get you money, and she would vote him out in the end anyways. So there's no point in keeping her around. So that is his dilemma. But Monty wanted to make sure that what is his name? Daniel doesn't also use the veto. Because if Daniel decides to use it and Kyle decides not to use it, it'll still get used. So he talks to Daniel, who already, I was like, this is easy. Daniel already didn't want to use a veto. He talks to Daniel and Nicole at the same time and tells them that he's not sure how the votes is going to go. His plan was to get rid of Taylor, and now he's feeling like the votes are some other way. So he wants them to not use the veto. He wants him to not use the veto so that Nicole is safe and everything is fine. They said yes, they're nodding their head. Nicole says she's been trained to detect when people are lying because she was a cop for 10 years. So she doesn't believe Monty. And now also Daniel doesn't believe Monty. So they both talked to each other, and they thought Monty is doing this because now he realized he doesn't have the vote to stay, and he to vote out Nicole, and they're thinking that that the votes actually flipped, and now they can get to vote out Taylor instead because Taylor and Monty's working together. That's their thought. Interesting thought. So they got excited for the idea because Monty now wants them to not use the veto. They want to use the veto. So so Daniel then goes to Kyle and tells him that Monty now realized that he doesn't have control over the house, and then the votes are flipped. And he's telling him that he's going to use the veto because that is going to ruin Monty's plan, and they're going to get rid of Taylor finally. So Kyle is just like nodding along, and he's not telling Daniel anything because now that protects him, because now he gets to protect his showmans and also tell his alliance that he had no choice because Daniel was going to use the veto. And also, Daniel pretty much set up a plan where they now pretty much put Nicole in danger. So Nicole and Daniel are excited about this plan that they hatched. So Daniel used the veto, and Monty puts up Nicole and Taylor. Taylor is crying because she doesn't know what happened. They had a whole plan, and things didn't go the way they thought by keeping the votes the same. Nicole is excited because she's like, Taylor is going to get voted out of the game finally. And Daniel was also excited. Kyle is excited because now Daniel just set up his own bestie to get voted out. Well, not his bestie, his best friend in the house to get voted out. It was an interesting, mind-boggling choice that was made this episode, and I can't wait to see what actually happens when obviously they have the votes. The Leftovers Alliance have the numbers. So Nicole is going home, and it was her idea to go up on the block. I am flabbergasted. Until next time.